A moving and emotional story of a woman who began living under the stairs of a building, but the neighbors, bothered by the woman, went looking for information about her, until they discovered that she is the daughter of. The sun was already setting when Anna arrived at the old building in the city center. At 65 years old, she carried a sack of rags on her back and the marks of a hard life on her face. The building's staircase seemed like a good place to rest, and she settled there, trying to protect herself from the cold wind that was starting to blow. Her weary gaze observed the residents who passed by hurriedly, each immersed in their own routine. Laura, a young single mother, climbed the stairs with her small child in her arms. Seeing Anna for the first time, she felt a mix of fear and curiosity. "Who is this woman?" she thought. She quickened her pace, trying not to draw attention, but her eyes couldn't help but divert to the figure huddled on the steps. The next day, Anna's presence on the staircase had become the topic of conversation in the building. Some residents whispered comments, while others cast suspicious glances. "Will she be staying here for a long time?" asked Mrs. Marta, a woman who lived on the third floor. "I don't know, but I don't like it," responded her neighbor, Mr. Joachim, frowning. Laura, despite her initial distrust, couldn't help but feel a pang of compassion. She knew how difficult it was to struggle every day to survive. When she crossed paths with Anna again, this time she exchanged a quick look with her. It was a brief moment, but full of meaning. Anna responded with a timid but grateful nod. One night, a storm hit the city. The wind howled, and the rain pounded against the windows. Laura was trying to calm her son, who was crying, frightened by the noise. Suddenly, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the hallway. It was Anna, soaked, looking for a dry place to take shelter. "You can't stay out there in this rain," said Laura, opening the door. Anna hesitated, but the kindness in Laura's gaze was enough to convince her. "Thank you," she responded, her voice low and hoarse. Laura offered a towel and hot tea, and the two sat in silence, listening to the storm outside. As they sipped the tea, Anna began to share a bit of her history. "I used to have a home, a family, but things changed. I lost everything," she said, her eyes filled with sadness. Laura listened attentively, feeling a growing connection with this woman who was so different, and yet so similar to her in her daily struggle. In the days that followed, Anna's presence gradually became part of the building's routine. Some residents still kept their distance, but others began to offer help. Mrs. Marta left a bag of clothes and food on the staircase. Mr. Joachim, despite his distrust, offered an old blanket. Laura and Anna continued to meet, and the initial distrust gave way to an unlikely friendship. Anna began to help Laura with small tasks, such as watching her son while she went to the market. "You've been an angel to me," Laura said on one of those days, smiling gratefully. Anna just smiled back, feeling a long-forgotten warmth in her chest. Gradually, Anna began to open up more about her past. She spoke about the difficult times, the losses, the sleepless nights. Laura, in turn, shared her own difficulties as a single mother, trying to balance work and caring for her son. The two women, so different in their paths, found comfort and strength in each other. The building's residents began to notice the change. "That beggar doesn't seem so scary now," commented Mrs. Marta to Mr. Joachim. "Yeah, maybe we judged her too harshly," he responded, scratching his head. The initial tension was dissipating, replaced by a cautious acceptance. Anna, who arrived at the building as a mysterious and lonely figure, found more than just shelter there. she found a new chance, a new beginning. And Laura, who initially saw Anna as a threat, discovered a friend and ally in her. Together, they began to transform not only their own lives, but also the small world around them. The morning was cold and damp when Laura descended the building stairs, holding her young son's hand. As she passed the staircase, she saw Anna still wrapped in her rags, sleeping soundly. Laura gripped her son's hand tighter, trying to hurry past. "Come on, dear, we have to go," she whispered, looking back with concern. In the hallway, Mrs. Marta peeked through the crack of her door, observing Anna with a mix of curiosity and distrust. "I wonder if she's going to cause trouble," she thought aloud, so that her neighbor, Mr. Joachim, could hear. "I don't know, but it's good to keep an eye on her," he responded, adjusting his glasses to see better. Later, when Anna woke up, she found a small bag of breads left by someone. Her eyes filled with tears. She wasn't used to kindnesses. As she took a bite of the bread, she heard footsteps in the hallway. It was Laura, returning from the market. They exchanged a quick glance, but Laura averted her gaze, trying to appear busy. "Good morning," said Anna, trying to be friendly. Laura paused, somewhat hesitant. "Good morning," she replied, forcing a smile. "Do you need anything else?" she asked, not quite sure why. Anna shook her head. "I'm fine, thank you. Just a little tired." Laura nodded and continued on her way, still apprehensive. Meanwhile, on the third floor, Mrs. Marta and Mr. Joachim continued to discuss Anna's presence. "She seems harmless, but you never know," said Mrs. Marta. "I agree. We don't know her past," responded Mr. Joachim, scratching his chin. "But we can't just kick her out like that, either," he pondered. In the early afternoon, Anna was sitting on the steps, staring into nothingness, when a young couple passed by her. "Hi, do you need anything?" asked the woman, with a kind smile. "No, my dear, thank you. I'm just resting," replied Anna. The couple continued on their way, but the woman looked back, concerned. Back in her apartment, Laura tried to focus on her household tasks, but the image of Anna wouldn't leave her mind. "Am I being too harsh?" she thought. Her son played on the floor, oblivious to his mother's worries. Laura sighed, trying to push the thoughts away, but the unease remained. In the late afternoon, as the sun began to set, a group of children were playing in the hallway. They stopped when they saw Anna and started whispering to each other. "Who is she?" asked one of the children. "I don't know, but my mom said not to talk to strangers," answered another. Anna smiled at them, but the children ran off, laughing nervously. Later, Mrs. Marta decided to act and brought a cup of tea for Anna. "Here, to warm you up a bit," she said, handing the cup. "Thank you very much, ma'am," replied Anna, surprised by the kindness. "No problem. If you need anything, I'm on the third floor," said Mrs. Marta, before returning to her apartment. It was already night when Laura went out to take out the trash and found Anna still awake. "Aren't you going to look for a shelter?" she asked, trying to be practical. "I've tried, but they're all full," Anna responded with a sigh. Laura bit her lip, not knowing what to say. "If you need anything, you can knock on my door," she finally said, feeling a little less guilty. In the following days, Anna's presence continued to divide opinions in the building. Some residents began to leave small gestures of help, while others ignored her completely. Laura, although still concerned, began to see Anna with different eyes. Maybe she just needs a chance, she thought, as she watched Anna through the window. The storm arrived suddenly, with thunderous booms and the rain beating heavily against the building's windows. Laura was in the kitchen, trying to prepare dinner while her son played in the living room. Suddenly, the lights flickered and everything went dark. "Oh, no. Right now," she exclaimed, grabbing a flashlight from the drawer. In the hallway, Anna was huddled in her corner when the darkness took over. She heard Laura's distressed voice coming from inside the apartment. "Calm down, my love, Mommy will fix this," Laura said to her son, trying to soothe him. Anna stood up, instinctively going towards Laura's door. "Do you need help?" she asked, knocking gently. Laura opened the door, surprised to see Anna there. "The lights went out and I don't know where the candles are," she said, holding the flashlight with one hand and her son with the other. Anna smiled gently. "I have some matches and candles with me. Can I help?" Laura hesitated for a moment, but the need spoke louder. "Of course, come in." Anna lit a few candles, illuminating the small living room with a soft glow. The boy stopped crying, mesmerized by the flickering flames. "Thank you, Anna. This helped a lot," said Laura, genuinely grateful. "It's nothing. I've been through many nights like this," Anna replied, with a calm smile. As the storm raged outside, Laura and Anna began to talk. "How can you be so calm?" asked Laura, still anxious about the situation. "You learn from life." "I've faced worse storms," said Anna, looking out the window. Laura felt a wave of respect for this resilient woman. Suddenly, a dripping sound came from the ceiling. "Oh, no! A leak!" exclaimed Laura, rushing to get a bucket. Anna followed her, helping to position the bucket in the right place. "These old buildings always have surprises," said Anna, trying to ease the tension. "Tell that to my roof," responded Laura, laughing nervously. With the leak under control, the two sat at the table, illuminated by the candles. "You have an interesting story, don't you?" asked Laura, curious. Anna sighed, looking at the flame of the candle. "Everyone carries their own scars, Laura. Life on the street teaches a lot, but it also hurts." Laura nodded, sensing the depth of Anna's words. The storm continued raging outside, but inside the apartment, a sense of camaraderie was growing. "You know, I've always been afraid to trust people," Laura confessed. "It's understandable. The world can be cruel. But sometimes, you find kindness in the most unexpected places," said Anna, gently touching Laura's hand. Time passed, and finally the power came back on. "Hallelujah!" exclaimed Laura, relieved. "Thank you for everything, Anna. I don't know what I would have done without your help today." Anna smiled, feeling warmth in her heart. "It was my pleasure. And remember, I'm always around if you need anything." Laura smiled back, feeling that something had changed between them. The rainy night had brought more than just problems, it had brought a new friendship. Laura realized that, despite appearances, Anna was a woman full of wisdom and kindness. And Anna, in turn, found in Laura a generous soul and a possible new beginning. "Let's face these storms together," said Laura, extending her hand. Anna grasped her hand, sealing an unspoken pact. The day began with a timid sun entering the windows of Laura's apartment. She was in the kitchen preparing coffee, while her son played on the living room rug. Suddenly, she heard a gentle knock on the door. "Who could it be so early?" she thought, walking to the door. Upon opening it, she found Carmela, the neighbor from the lower floor. "Good morning, Laura. Can I come in?" "We need to talk," said Carmela with a kind but concerned smile. Laura invited her in and offered a cup of coffee. "Of course, Mrs. Carmela. Have a seat, please." "What happened?" Carmela sighed, looking around before beginning to speak. "It's about Anna. I think you need to know more about her." Meanwhile, Anna was sitting on the stairs, enjoying the morning breeze. She was thinking about the recent days, how her friendship with Laura was growing, and how she felt more secure. Her thoughts were interrupted by voices coming from Laura's apartment. Curious, she stood up and walked discreetly to the slightly open door, listening to the conversation. "Laura, do you remember that company that went bankrupt a few years ago?" "Andrade and Sons?" asked Carmela. Laura nodded, surprised. "Of course, my father worked there. It was a disaster for our family when the company closed." "Why are you mentioning that now?" Carmela took a deep breath before continuing. "Anna, she's the daughter of the owner of that company." Anna, hearing everything from the hallway, felt her legs weaken. Her father, Mr. Andrade, had always been a respected businessman, until everything crumbled. She knew that many families were affected, but she never imagined meeting someone so close to one of those families. She felt a lump in her throat as she realized the coincidence. Inside the apartment, Laura was in shock. "Are you saying that Anna is the daughter of the man who caused so many problems for my family?" she asked, incredulous. Carmela nodded. "Yes, Laura. I thought you should know. But look, she also suffered a lot. They lost everything. She's not to blame for her father's mistakes." Laura fell silent, processing the information. Anna, from outside, felt torn between going in and explaining herself or fleeing to avoid facing Laura's reaction. She decided to go in, her heart pounding. "Laura, I heard the conversation. Please, let me explain." Laura looked at Anna, still in shock, but gestured for her to sit down. "Okay, Anna. Speak." Anna began to recount her family's story, the highs and lows they faced after the company's bankruptcy. "My father made mistakes, yes. He never wanted to hurt anyone, but things got out of control. We lost everything, and since then, I've been struggling to survive." Laura listened in silence, feeling the tension in the air, but also the sincerity in Anna's words. Mrs. Carmela, who had been quiet until then, decided to intervene. "Girls, the past is painful, but you have a chance to build something new. Laura, I know it's hard, but try to see beyond what happened. Anna is a good person, and she was also a victim of the circumstances." Laura took a deep breath, feeling a whirlwind of emotions. "I understand, Mrs. Carmela. I just need some time to process all of this." Anna nodded, understanding Laura's position. "I didn't expect this to be easy. I just wanted you to know that I'm here, trying to start over. I don't want to bring more pain to anyone." Laura looked at Anna, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes. "I believe in second chances, Anna. Let's take it one step at a time." The tension in the air began to subside, replaced by a sense of mutual understanding. Mrs. Carmela smiled, satisfied to see that the two were willing to face the past together. "I'm sure you'll find a way. And remember, I'm here to help in any way I can." Laura and Anna exchanged a look of complicity, knowing that, despite the difficulties, they were on the right path. Laura's apartment was bustling that morning. The residents had gathered to discuss some building issues. Mrs. Carmela, as always, was at the center of attention, leading the meeting. Anna, sitting in a corner, watched everything with attention. Laura, next to her, noticed the tension in the air and whispered, "Are you okay, Anna?" Anna took a deep breath, trying to calm down. "Actually, no. I need to talk to Mrs. Carmela about something that has been bothering me." Laura looked at her, surprised. "Do you want help? I can be with you." Anna nodded, grateful. "Yes, please. It'll be easier if you're with me." Laura held Anna's hand, conveying strength and support. At the end of the meeting, when the other residents began to disperse, Anna approached Mrs. Carmela. "Mrs. Carmela, can I talk to you for a moment?" Mrs. Carmela, sensing the seriousness in Anna's gaze, nodded. "Of course, my dear. Let's go to the kitchen." Laura followed them, feeling that something important was about to happen. In the kitchen, Anna faced Mrs. Carmela, trying to find the right words. "Mrs. Carmela, last night, I overheard you telling Laura about my family. I know you were trying to help, but that really shook me up." Mrs. Carmela frowned, concerned. "Anna, I only wanted her to know the truth. I didn't mean to hurt you." Anna sighed, feeling the weight of the words. "I understand, but it was hard to hear all of that. My family has been through a lot, and reliving those moments is not easy." Mrs. Carmela gently touched Anna's shoulder. "I'm sorry, dear. Sometimes we don't realize how much certain truths can hurt. I'll be more careful." Laura, who had been silent until then, decided to intervene. "I think we're all here trying to deal with the past in the best way possible. We need to learn to forgive and move forward." Anna looked at Laura, moved. "You're right. Forgiveness is a difficult but necessary path." Mrs. Carmela nodded in agreement. "Exactly, Laura. And I'm here to help in any way I can." The conversation continued, with Anna feeling relieved to share her feelings. "I just want a fresh start, without being judged by my father's mistakes. I know he failed, but he also suffered the consequences." Laura smiled, understanding the depth of Anna's words. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Anna. And we're here to support you." The other residents, who had been listening to the conversation from afar, began to approach. "It seems we have more in common than we thought," said one of them, breaking the ice. "The truth is, we all have our own demons to face." Mrs. Carmela looked around, feeling a new sense of solidarity. "That's true. Unity is strength." With the atmosphere lighter, tension gave way to reflection. Laura was thinking about what she had learned. Forgiveness and redemption are difficult but essential themes. Maybe this is our chance to grow as a community. Anna agreed, feeling more hopeful. "Yes, Laura. And I want to be a part of this, helping in any way I can." Mrs. Carmela, with a serene look, concluded the conversation. "Let's all work together to create a better environment. Learning to forgive is the first step." The residents nodded, feeling more connected. Anna and Laura exchanged a look of complicity, knowing they were on the right path to leave the past behind. That day marked the beginning of a new phase for everyone. Anna, Laura, Mrs. Carmela, and the other residents began to see each other in a new light, more understanding and supportive. "We're in this together, Anna," said Laura, hugging her friend. "And we'll face anything that comes our way." Anna smiled, feeling finally welcomed. "Yes, Laura. Together, we are stronger." The building's meeting room was full that night. All the residents had been summoned to discuss important community issues. Laura and Anna were nervous, as they knew they had an important revelation to make. They looked at each other, seeking courage in each other. "We're in this together, Anna," whispered Laura with an encouraging smile. When everyone was settled, Laura stood up and asked for the floor. "Everyone, thank you for coming. Today we have something very important to share with you. I know it's been a difficult time for all of us, but it's time to speak openly about a few things." Anna took a deep breath and, with a nod, encouraged Laura to continue. "It's about Mrs. Carmela and the impact the Andrade and Sons bankruptcy had on our lives." The residents began to whisper to each other, curious and apprehensive. Mrs. Carmela, sitting at the back, watched in silence, but with a calm look. Laura continued, "Recently, we discovered that Anna is the daughter of the owner of the company that went bankrupt and affected many families, including mine. But we also discovered that Mrs. Carmela has a very personal history connected to this." The murmur increased, but Laura remained calm. Anna then stood up, feeling the weight of the gaze on her. "I know many of you may have negative feelings about this, but I ask that you hear me out. My family also suffered a lot. My father made mistakes, but we paid a high price. Mrs. Carmela was greatly impacted by all this, and she has something to say." Silence fell over the room as Mrs. Carmela stood up. "My dear friends, I know many of you have known me for years, but there are things I've never spoken about my past. I was one of the main shareholders of Andrade and Sons. When the company went bankrupt, I lost everything, just like many families here. But what most don't know is that I tried, in every way, to save the company and the jobs it generated." The residents were in shock, absorbing the revelation. One of the residents, Mr. John, raised his hand. "Mrs. Carmela, why didn't you tell us this before?" She sighed, visibly emotional. "Shame and guilt consumed me for many years. I tried to move forward by helping the community in other ways, but I knew that one day the truth would come out. Today, I want to apologize to everyone who suffered because of this bankruptcy." A mix of empathy and surprise took over the environment. Laura intervened again. "I was also heavily affected, but I've learned that we all deserve a second chance. Mrs. Carmela has been a force for our community, and I believe we can overcome this together." Anna nodded, feeling tears welling up. "We're here to face the past and build a better future. We need your support." The silence was broken by some timid applause. Mrs. Margaret, another longtime resident, slowly stood up. "Mrs. Carmela, I've always admired you for your strength and generosity. Knowing this now doesn't change how I feel. We all make mistakes, but what matters is what we do afterward." Mrs. Margaret's words brought a noticeable relief to Mrs. Carmela's face. Other residents began to express their feelings, some still confused, but most showing understanding. Mr. Jose, known for being more direct, spoke next. "The truth is complicated, but we need to remember that we're all in the same boat. If Mrs. Carmela and Anna are willing to deal with the past and move forward, who are we to judge?" There was a murmur of agreement, and the atmosphere in the room began to change. Laura smiled, feeling they were on the right track. Anna felt a wave of gratitude and relief. Thank you all for listening and for giving this chance. I promise to do my best to contribute to the community and show that we can overcome anything together. Mrs. Carmela, moved, also expressed her thanks. Thank you for hearing me out and for this chance at redemption. Let's work together to improve our future. The meeting ended with a new sense of unity and purpose. Laura, Anna, and Mrs. Carmela left the room, feeling lighter. I think we did it, Anna, said Laura, hugging her friend. Yes, Laura. Today we took a big step. Thank you for being with me. Mrs. Carmela smiled, hugging the two. We're all in this together. And now, more than ever, we are a true community. The morning sun streamed through the cracks in the blinds in Anna's apartment. She was having coffee with Laura, both still reflecting on the previous night's meeting. Laura, I still can't believe we managed to tell the residents everything, said Anna, distractedly stirring her cup. Laura smiled. It was a big step, Anna. Now we need to continue this journey. They knew Mrs. Carmela was still processing everything. They decided to visit her apartment to see how she was doing. When they arrived, they were greeted with a warm hug. Girls, please come in. I'm so grateful for your support, said Mrs. Carmela, her eyes shining with emotion. Anna and Laura sat down, ready to talk. We were thinking, what if we organized a reconciliation event for all the residents? Something that shows the importance of forgiveness and empathy, suggested Laura. Mrs. Carmela looked at them with surprise. Do you think that would work? Will people want to participate? Anna squeezed her hand. I believe so. We need to take the first step. The three spent the morning planning the event's details. We can do a community dinner, with everyone bringing a special dish, proposed Anna. And maybe a discussion circle, where everyone can share their stories and feelings, added Laura. Mrs. Carmela smiled, excited about the idea. This could really help heal some wounds. In the following days, Anna and Laura went door to door inviting the residents. It's going to be a special night, folks. An opportunity to reconnect and leave the past behind, Laura explained. Many residents showed enthusiasm, while others were still hesitant. Let's at least try, said Mr. John, accepting the invitation with a shy smile. On the day of the event, the building's hall was decorated with lights and flowers, creating a welcoming atmosphere. The tables were full of delicious dishes brought by the residents. Anna and Laura were running around, making sure everything was perfect. When Mrs. Carmela entered, she was greeted with warm applause. Thank you all for being here, she said, moved. The evening began with a delicious dinner, where everyone shared stories and laughter. This is the kind of thing that reminds us of what really matters, commented Mrs. Margaret, while serving a slice of cake. The atmosphere was one of unity and joy, something that had been lacking in the building for a long time. Anna, Laura, and Mrs. Carmela watched everything with satisfied smiles. After dinner, Laura called everyone to a discussion circle. Everyone, today is a day to speak from the heart. Anyone who wants to share something is more than welcome. Mr. Jose was the first to speak. I've always been a bit gruff, but this situation made me see how much we need each other. Other residents followed, sharing their own experiences and lessons learned. Mrs. Carmela then spoke up. I want to thank everyone for their understanding and support. I know I made mistakes, but I'm willing to do my best to correct what I can. This event is an important step for all of us." Her words were met with applause and some emotional hugs. The atmosphere was filled with empathy and solidarity. Anna, feeling inspired, also wanted to share. "I've always carried the weight of my father's mistakes, but today I see that we can create new stories. Thank you for accepting me and for being willing to start over together." Laura smiled, proud of her friend. "We're all here to support each other, Anna. This is just the beginning of a new phase for all of us." At the end of the night, the residents said their goodbyes with hugs and promises of future gatherings. "Let's do this more often," said Mrs. Margaret, already thinking about the next event. Anna and Laura, exhausted but happy, helped Mrs. Carmela tidy up the hole. "Today was incredible," said Anna, sighing with relief. "Yes, it was. And it's all thanks to this unlikely alliance," Laura added, smiling. Mrs. Carmela looked at the two with gratitude. "You've changed my life and the lives of everyone here. I'm eternally grateful for this opportunity for redemption." Anna and Laura hugged each other, feeling that they had found something precious, the strength of unity and forgiveness. "We're together, always," they said in unison. And so, with light hearts and renewed hopes, the three bid farewell that night, aware that they had planted the seed of a new beginning. In the following days, the building seemed different, more alive and welcoming. People smiled more and greeted each other with genuine cordiality. Anna and Laura continued to support Mrs. Carmela, helping her organize small activities to maintain the spirit of unity. One afternoon, as Anna and Laura were having coffee in Anna's apartment, they were discussing new ideas for community events. "We could do a book swap, what do you think?" suggested Laura. Anna loved the idea. "That would be great. And we could also organize skills workshops, like cooking and crafts." The two got excited, listing the possibilities. Mrs. Carmela, upon learning of the new ideas, was delighted. "You're really transforming this place. I'm so proud to be a part of this." She began to actively help with the organization, talking to the residents and encouraging everyone's participation. "Each person has something special to share," she said, with a sparkle in her eyes. The first event was the book swap, held in the building's hall. The tables were full of books of all genres, and the residents circulated excitedly. "I've been looking for this book for years," exclaimed Mr. John, holding a rare edition. Laura smiled, satisfied. "This is what we're talking about, John. Sharing and connecting." The workshops were also a success. Mrs. Margaret taught her famous pot pie recipe, while Mr. Jose showed off his woodworking skills. "I've always wanted to learn how to do this," said Anna, holding a hammer. "It's easier than it seems," Mr. Jose replied, laughing. Laughter and conversations filled the hall, creating an atmosphere of learning and camaraderie. Over time, the community activities became a tradition in the building. Anna and Laura were now seen as natural leaders, always seeking new ways to strengthen the bonds between the residents. "I never imagined we could create something so beautiful," confessed Anna to Laura. "I didn't either, but it's amazing to see how much we can do together," replied Laura, moved. Mrs. Carmela, in turn, felt increasingly at peace. The guilt and shame she had carried for so long were replaced by gratitude and joy. "You've changed my life," she would often say to Anna and Laura. "And we've all changed our community," Laura would respond, always with a loving smile. One night, after another successful event, Anna, Laura, and Mrs. Carmela sat on the balcony of Anna's apartment, looking at the stars. Who would have thought all this would start with a tense meeting in the hall, reflected Anna. Life is full of surprises. And some of them are really good, Mrs. Carmela responded, with a serene gaze. As they chatted, they heard laughter and animated voices coming from the hall. That's the sound of a united community, said Laura, smiling. And it's only the beginning, added Anna, holding her friend's hands. They knew that regardless of future challenges, they had created something lasting and special. The unlikely alliance between them had become a powerful force for change and hope. And so, with a sense of accomplishment and a horizon full of possibilities, Anna, Laura, and Mrs. Carmela continued to build a better future for everyone in the building. This was just the beginning of many chapters of unity, friendship, and growth. And together, they were ready to write each one with love and determination. This was the story for today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you and see you next time.